Good evening, America. This is Q News Tonight, the world's first live daily gay evening news show, and it's 7 p.m. Tuesday, February 18th, 2020. Q News Tonight is live and unscripted, so anything can happen. Tonight, we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBTQ community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and these are my co-anchors, Aaron Darr and Napoleon Plays. So let's cue up the news. And by the way, guys, I don't know if you've been asked, because I was asked a lot. What does the Q up mean? It means queer.
Queer.
We're queering.
We're looking at you.
The news. We begin with breaking Q news. We have no video packages. We're just telling you about the breaking news that's been going on this afternoon. And that is Trump goes on a clemency spree, letting a bevy of crooks and criminals out of jail. So far on the list, Governor Rod, help me with the name?
Buttigieg.
Thank you. And Edward DeBartolo, Bernie Carrick, Michael Milken, shocking to me, Tyneese Nicole Hall, Crystal Munoz, Judith Negron, in total 11 pardons and clemency notices today from the White House and President Trump. Just unprecedented what we are watching in Breaking Q News. What do y'all think?
Well, make no mistake, this was completely intentional because in 2 days, his friend Roger Stone is going to officially be sentenced. So I think this is going to lay the foundation for him to pardon Roger Stone.
He is very good at ingratiating that way. He's said for a long time, I think one of his famed quotes, "I'm not the ruler, you're the ruler." He said to the people, start getting us on board with where he might be leaking his own language.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard this story, I immediately thought of the Joker and just everyone getting released out of the asylum, all, like Harley Quinn and all of the evil villains that are just running around Gotham. Like, well, great. We need our Batman now.
You know, the scary thing to me at this moment is your illustration is washing over me of going, yes, that's really what's going on. And that's scary as all get out.
Psychotic laughter is going on everywhere in your head.
It's Breaking Q News. We have nothing to show you other than to tell you it is going on. And I guess there's probably truth. He's preparing for what he's going to do on Roger Stone in 2 days. We want to remind all of our viewers, as you know, America, we're broadcasting from South Florida, from Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, and today is the last day to register to vote in Florida. So you need to go online and do it because today is your last day to do it.
And if you're not in Florida, go check. Make sure that you're registered to vote and that it's up to date.
Yep.
Primaries are coming.
Yep.
And we also want to make sure, not just to vote, but your voices are important in voting and also here. And we want you to know, we want to ask you, actually, if LGBT voices are important to you. Obviously, yes, because the whole voting thing we were just discussing. But can the news of the world have a gay community perspective? We ask this every day. If you, like us, think the answer is a resounding yes, then like and subscribe to Q News Tonight on YouTube and on Facebook. Do our gay cultural stories impact you, your friends, and family? Start a watch party. Get your circle involved in our conversations as it supports the entirety of our gay community.
The exciting thing before we queue up the news tonight is Q News Tonight is now in our 6th week, and we're principally in YouTube television. We are excited that we are the most watched product here in South Florida and in Florida in YouTube. It's very exciting in terms of the support we're getting. Generally, more than 20,000 of you are watching in YouTube television, but support us in Facebook also. So let's queue up the news, and we queue up the USA. And we first report about the Boy Scouts of America, facing costs from sex abuse scandals, has filed for bankruptcy protection. We've prepared this information on this story. Watch this.
The Boy Scouts of America has filed for bankruptcy. This announcement comes after months of speculation, declining membership, and a multitude of child sexual abuse cases. The Boy Scouts' problems were magnified after an Oregon court forced the release of more than 20,000 confidential documents, also known as the perversion files.
These are files that document the history of allegations of abuse in scouting and how the Boy Scouts responded to those allegations.
The records they kept hidden included the names of more than 1,000 band volunteers and included details about incidents of abuse.
The Boy Scouts of America is a nationally run organization, and what they're doing here is preemptively getting ready for what they expect to be thousands of complaints that are seen as very complicated of victims that have been in different ways assaulted or harassed as they were in scouting. This is a two-part statement that they've wanted to release. One, that they're creating a victims compensation trust, a significant amount of money to go to the people that will obviously be reporting different types of abuse, but then two, to continue the mission of the Boy Scouts of America. And while they're hoping that everything will continue to run uninterrupted locally, there are definitely going to be some complications. The Catholic Church has been tied to scouting for a very long time, since it was conceived, in fact. And even though the Catholic Church is undergoing a lot of investigations like this, what's going on in scouting is seen to be, with thousands of people, a lot more complicated. Scouting has a long history of going through LGBT and human rights, first letting women in 1988, and then in 2013 they finally allowed gay scouts to be involved in it after a 2-year period where it was don't ask, don't tell, kind of like the military. It wasn't until 2015 that they started to allow adult leaders to even be gay, because before that you could be removed for it.
You know, Napoleon, speaking of that, you're an Eagle Scout.
Yes.
Which is the top rung in the Boy Scouts of America. LGBT.
Yes.
I presume you're gay.
Yes.
And an Eagle Scout. What's your reaction to this news about their declaring?
I have a lot of different thoughts about this. My first is going back, obviously, as a gay scout and wondering what my troop was like in that context. Not in terms of assault, I didn't experience anything like that, but just in terms of the vibe of being LGBT in a community. Because I know I was the only person that was out, and it wasn't until a decade or so later that I even knew or was told how much that impacted people that came after me, but how much a lot of the parents were either fearful or impacted by my being there. So I'm not surprised that this is part of what's going on, because there is a lot of hidden bias and hidden fear that is involved in scouting, but I am concerned that it might not be able to recover from this. If they're filing for bankruptcy, a lot of people do, a lot of organizations do, but what statement is that making about how they feel like they're guilty?
Okay. We continue in queuing up next, Vote 2020. The Democratic debate is tomorrow night, and Michael Bloomberg has qualified. And breaking news tonight in Vote 2020 is Sanders calls out billionaire Bloomberg for trying to buy the election. We've prepared his remarks. Watch this.
And we are going to end a corrupt political system in which billionaires buy elections. Democracy, to me, means one person, one vote. Not Bloomberg or anybody else spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to buy an election.
As our viewers just saw in the video, Senator Sanders is calling out billionaire Michael Bloomberg for trying to buy the election this year, the Democratic primary mainly. He's going on saying that he's trying to buy the nomination, if you will, as they both are trying to vie for first and second place in national polling, which has Bernie Sanders leading in the nation at 31% and Mike Bloomberg in second at 19%. So this will continue to go on, and I imagine it will be sparks flying tomorrow, as Mike Bloomberg will be front and center at the Nevada debate.
I'm excited, to be honest with you, that Bloomberg is in the debate. Not only because I'm looking forward to hearing what Bloomberg finally has to say. It seems like we've been waiting forever. But also, I'm excited because there's not a candidate going to be standing on that stage that is not going to squarely unload on Mike Bloomberg. They have to. We know that that's coming, and we're going to find it's very interesting, I think, in terms of what is happening. We continue in queuing up Vote 2020 in reverse. Bloomberg has called out Sanders over the Bernie bros for the over-the-top attacks. This new commercial debuted just today. It is shocking. Watch this.
it is vitally important for those of us who hold different views to be able to engage in a civil discourse.
A new campaign ad by Michael Bloomberg against Bernie Sanders, kind of foreshadowing some of the mistakes that were made in 2016 with some of his supporters going by Bernie bros, just repeating the same mistakes in 2020 where they're just attacking all the Democratic candidates. You really see that very evident, and as someone who did not support Bernie Sanders in 2016, I was a Hillary Clinton supporter, I saw it firsthand in 2016, but this is Bernie bros on steroids this election season. They've been borderline homophobic and much more sexist than they were in the past.
Do you think that part of this problem comes also just from social media, obviously, but from the lack of clarity in what news is real? We talk about fake news all of the time, but we don't imply any way of how that creates more trolling or creates more upset or creates this ripple effect, which I think the Bernie bros are a part of.
Do you think the ad is effective?
I do, because for me, I sat there and I had this conversation with a couple of my Hillary friends last night online, because it had leaked online last night, and we were all talking, wow, he's really trying to go after those hardcore Clinton supporters, because she was so harassed, and a lot of her supporters were in 2016, and hurt. And you know, in my personal opinion, I think Hillary Clinton could have survived James Comey. I think she could have survived Russia, Benghazi, emails. I think Hillary Clinton would have been president had it not been for Bernie Sanders and his supporters. 22% of his supporters in Wisconsin alone did not vote for her. Same thing goes in Michigan and Pennsylvania and states where he did very well, where you see exit polling coming out where they either voted third party, they wrote in Bernie, or they voted for Trump.
I think that the brilliance of this commercial that has just debuted today and the night before, the day before the debate that Bloomberg will be in the first of, is a bullet. And the reason it is a bullet is because Bloomberg's campaign basically sets up in the Bernie bros the actual probably top objection to him, which is if he doesn't win, he will not support. And that's what's really behind this ad. We're going to watch this closely. And of course, America, you know we're going to report on this closely. We continue in queuing up the world. And we report a skirmish that has taken place in Europe as the U.S. was left alone on the world stage as European allies slammed Trump's America First policy. We've prepared this. Watch.
The United States rejects the international community. End of quote. I'm here this morning to tell you the facts. I'm happy to report that the death of the transatlantic alliance is grossly over-exaggerated.
That may be, but the morning's other main speaker was not so sure. French President Emmanuel Macron said Europe must become more independent of the US.
If we have no freedom to act, then we have no credibility in foreign policy, and we can't be a junior partner to the United States of America.
The Munich Security Conference is about 40 years old, and it's a big gathering of the minds. What we're seeing Trump state and continue to state, as he did at NATO, at the Davos Forum earlier this year, an American first policy, which is that we will isolate, we will make sure that we control our own military, which we're withdrawing from the rest of the world. We will control our own trade by taxing other people more, by withdrawing from global agreements like the Paris Climate Agreement. We've seen people from many different countries, the German President Steinmeier, French President Macron, and a lot of people in the UK continue to raise questions about this tension that's forming between us and some of our greatest historical allies, especially the UK. This department, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, even went out to say a lot of comments that were seen as being for Trump rather than for the people that he wanted to impress at this conference. A phrase that was thrown around was Westlessness, which isn't Daffy Duck speaking. It's just restlessness from the West, which is an idea of being a little bit too content with where we're at the West. Some people were saying that it was a jab at Republicans who they were a little bit more disciplined toward than the Democrats that were there, like Nancy Pelosi.
Any thoughts about what we watched at the conference?
I think it's very frustrating. I think one of the things that frustrates me the most about Donald Trump being president, it's not what he's doing domestically here at home. Sure, it's awful, again, that we're putting children in cages and separating families at the border. But we've lost our standing abroad. And regardless of whoever is president, whoever the Democratic nominee is, let's say that person wins, they're going to have such a mess to clean up. I mean, we have United States consulates and embassies, countless posts all over the world that have been vacant since he's been president. So we have a lot to do to repair our standing abroad.
Yeah. We see a lot of examples where isolationism just didn't work. I mean, China, Germany, and that's exactly what we're going into right now, an era where we might not be connected to the world, whatever that means, and might be much worse off for it.
But every step of the way, Q News Tonight is going to be there, and it's going to show our viewers what's going on. And because Q News Tonight is part of the Happening Out television network, we are the daily news. But you can also watch the best of entertainment live every Monday night at 8 p.m. on happening.fun. We are also part of the most popular live gay TV show in the world every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on It's Happening Out. It's like a talk show television show called The View with a whole lot of gay people.
Are you planning to call me gay again?
No, I think that the one over here with the bow tie takes the takes the hit for us.
I'm feeling fancy. Thank you, Nick's Menswear.
Fancy man. All right, let's fancy man. Cue up the USA. A Republican wants to create a record of people's sexual orientation and penalize those who lie about it. It's an unbelievable moment. Listen to these words as we show you this.
What appears to be an effort to sway public opinion. The media, for the most part, has bamboozled us into thinking that having a relationship outside of the boundaries of monogamous heterosexual marriage is positive, happy, and fulfilling. Movies, television shows, articles, and magazines abound with this theme, giving partial information to a vulnerable and impressionable audience, our children.
A Senate Republican in Iowa wants to create a record of people's sexual orientation and penalize those who lie. Senate File 2130 is being proposed by Iowa State Senator Dennis Guth. This would list sexual preferences on marriage licenses. So the objective is to punish those who would come out after being married and create a state database of citizens' sexualities. It's frustrating because this is now the 13th bill just in the last 2 months since the session has started in Iowa and its state capital. 13th anti-LGBT bill.
I asked before the show went on the air, I was asking Aaron, because I'm not familiar with this state senator, when you told me it was he was a state senator of Iowa, it makes perfect sense. They have had the worst record in the last 2 months. And oh, by the way, we're talking about the Iowa caucus also. Just terrible. It reminds me, as I heard this story that you're reporting, that this is what happened in Nazi Germany
Exactly.
in the 1930s.
Exactly. You're talking to a Jew right here. For the first half of my life, I legitimately wouldn't write that I was Jewish on a lot of documentation just because of history. It's so terrifying to think that they're trying to rally people up like this. And coming right after the story about isolationism, too. We're repeating the exact same steps that we did take to such detriment.
Yeah, we're watching you, Iowa, and we are expecting more from you, Iowa. We're expecting more. We queue up religion now as a Catholic school in Seattle, Washington. Looks like they have fired 2 gay teachers because they got engaged. We've prepared this. Watch.
In a statement to parents last week, the Catholic schools said the teachers, quote, voluntarily resigned their positions. A reason for their resignation was not given, but 2 King County Council members weighed in. One claimed the teachers were fired, quote, solely because they are gay. He went on to say, this is a reminder of the blatant discrimination that continues to exist in our community against members of the LGBT community. Another councilman wrote, by forcing the resignations of 2 teachers over their sexual orientation, Kennedy Catholic and the Archdiocese of Seattle tell young people, especially LGBTQ students at Kennedy, is that being LGBTQ is wrong.
The Archdiocese of Seattle is being called out by various people, local councilmen, students, parents, for this action. He stands by that both of these 2 teachers, 2 separate teachers that got engaged to different people, one a man and one a woman, but both gay, that they resigned. However, one of those teachers' fiancés has stated very directly that they are now no longer employed because of the engagement. Quite direct statement. The teachers that were fired found this out on Valentine's Day, of all days, last Friday. way to say hello on a romantic day. But this honestly reminds me a lot of a very specific episode in Handmaid's Tale, where the teachers started to, I don't know how many of you guys have seen that, but there's an episode where the teachers started to get fired.
We've watched
it. But it just happens so casually, and no one speaks out. And that's this running thread that we're talking about. We're talking about Nazi Germany a lot in this conversation, people not speaking out. But fortunately, that's not actually what we saw here. An update to this story is that in the school today, they organized a sit-in. Obviously, some students had to push it a little bit harder.
This picture we're looking at is a picture from today?
Yeah, it's from just today, just as a response, because they were favorite teachers, and the kids don't seem to be happy about it. So this is them standing up for their community, for their teachers, and for what's right as humans.
If there's one thing that I've said multiple times since we've started Q News Tonight, and that I'm going to say all the way up to November 3rd, 2020, there are a lot of people that often say to me, even in the gay community, that, we already have marriage equality. It's over. You're good. You're fine. You're done. But this is a perfect example of it. You can get married on Sunday, but you can be fired for being LGBT in this country on Monday. It's a shame.
Well, certainly as I look at this picture, it inspires me that these high school students would have a peaceful protest like this to stand up for two LGBT community members and teachers at Kennedy Catholic High School in Burien, Washington. So congratulations to them. We continue in our news program tonight at Q News Tonight by queuing up entertainment. And Buttigieg says he will not take lectures, quote unquote, on family values from Rush Limbaugh. Interesting comments, kind of a follow-up to our commentary last week on Rush Limbaugh. Look at what Mayor Pete said.
Well, I love my husband. I'm faithful to my husband. On stage, we usually just go for a hug, but I love him very much. And I'm not going to take lectures on family values from the likes of Rush Limbaugh.
I love that video. I think that video is so precious. Just to reiterate what Mayor Pete is saying, I think that Rush Limbaugh is the last person to talk about family values. He himself has been married multiple times, and he himself has shown himself to be unfaithful, which is why he's been divorced so many times. His own wife lives across the street from him in a different house. So let's talk about these family values. It's true. I'm not joking. It's frustrating to me because this person was just given the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the greatest civilian honor that you can give somebody in the United States. And it's frustrating to me because we're rewarding him for bad behavior, someone who's made disparaging comments against not only the LGBTQ community, but people living with AIDS, which we know here as we sit in the World AIDS Museum and Education Center, something that all too often affects the LGBTQ community. So I think it's very frustrating, and I'm glad to see that Pete is standing firm in his stance against homophobia.
It's really funny to me. When I first heard these words over the weekend that he said, I really put myself in his position. What I really love about it, and I agree with you on how you start this reporting of the story, that you really love his words, because he's really speaking for the entire LGBT community of going, please do not lecture me to Rush Limbaugh. And how many people in the LGBT community don't agree with that sentiment? Please, unless you walk in my shoes, don't lecture me. Rush Limbaugh is the last person on the planet can comment on anything to do with constructive community family values. It seems like that's it, right?
So new portmanteau, rush-splaining.
Yeah,
mansplaining,
exactly.
Rush.
We remind you, America, we are broadcasting from our new set in the middle of the World AIDS Museum and Education Center. We're very proud to be right in this room in this very important location. In Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We always joke, we are broadcasting from the gayest place on planet Earth. You've got to come to South Florida and see it because you would not believe how many Aaron Dars and Napoleon plays that there are here in this gayest place. We also thank our set designers, Concepto Modern Living, here in Fort Lauderdale, for the help of construction of this set. We move into our final segment tonight called The Big Finish. There are many stories today. We only want to just mention briefly. Let's see if Aaron, Napoleon, and I can entertain each other as we have a kind of lightning round on the LGBT news of the day and the news with an LGBT perspective. Either way, if they talk too much or are not entertaining and I ring this bell right here, and it's going to sound just like that, we move on for the big finish. Gentlemen, do you understand our rules?
Yes, we do.
And our topics, I'm getting ready to tell you. This is Q News Tonight, The Big Finish. The Big Finish, topic number 1. Kenan Thompson and Hassan Minhaj, of Patriot Act, is to headline the White House Correspondents' Dinner. News?
I think that's crazy. Did you guys hear that that the White House just required Netflix to remove an episode of the Patriot Act that had to do with Saudi Arabia? So the host of that show is now going to be headlining there. I hope he just does that entire segment live for them.
Censorship coming out of the White House. It doesn't surprise me in 2020.
Yeah. Is the White House Correspondents' Dinner important today? Does it make any difference?
No, I mean, President Trump is yet again not going to be there this year. But I think that this is an opportunity to explain the importance of media in the Trump administration.
Okay, I'm not sure.
I plan to watch the uncorrespondence dinner with Samantha.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I haven't watched the Correspondents' Dinner since President Trump got elected. The Big Finish, topic number 2, story number 2. Pete Buttigieg said, if Donald Trump won't leave the White House, he can do chores.
The larger part of this conversation is that if a Democrat wins, whoever he or she is, on November 3rd, 2020, make no mistake, Donald Trump is going to say that the election was rigged, and he's going to go kicking and screaming. He's going to do everything that he can to invalidate the election.
Right. That's true. But isn't this a fun image that Pete Buttigieg just gave everybody? We were talking about The Help, like the movie, and I'm just imagining him being served a shit pie and like eating it, and then just imagine how much satisfaction that would give the globe.
I'm hoping, just like at Trump National Golf Course, you must work 74 hours a week for $5.50 an hour, and that's what Mayor Pete pays him. Big Finish, topic number 3. Rosario, thank you, gentlemen, Dawson comes out and apologizes for not doing so earlier.
As you throw everyone off by your pronunciation being correct. Thank you. Thank you for that, by the way. I love Rosario Dawson. I've loved her for...
It was a brutal read.
For 8 ways. Yeah, Rosario Dawson. Rosario Dawson is a famed actress. I'm now only thinking Josie and the Pussycats, but obviously she was in Rent. She plays a lot of LGBT roles, and she's really outspoken about what she does. She's a Tarantino fan and actress. I applaud everything she does.
I mean, this is a big deal for her, honestly. I mean, she's dating Cory Booker.
You sound really exciting. It's a big deal.
It is a big deal for her. I don't really care for her. I never really have. But
I think I know why. I know why. It's because you always go out every single midnight and you sing every single night. What's the time? Well, it's got to be close to midnight. You're going to sing Out Tonight from beginning to end every single day.
I love that. The Big Finish, topic number 4, the battle of the billionaires. Jeff Bezos, he's back in the news again. The world's richest man pledges $10 billion to help fight climate change.
And why isn't he running for president? Honestly, this is wonderful. The climate crisis is the biggest thing affecting my generation.
Tom Steyer's running, so that's a very similar, without all the baggage of Bezos. But this should have been taxed anyway. I don't feel like we should give him credit for something that he should have been paying anyway.
The reason he's not running for president is he's got a country to run. It's called Amazon.
They protested the day after that,
Big Finish, topic number 5. Bill Gates bought himself a Porsche over a Tesla. And Elon Musk, weren't we just talking about battling billionaires, just called him underwhelming.
Battling billionaires, I think that's really right. That was the whole way I was thinking of this. I was thinking of this like an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race where they're just queens throwing it around, having different things to say, forming their cliques, and I love to think of them that way, and it's how I will forever think of Elon Musk.
It's interesting. Someone equated this story earlier when I was telling them about it, the battle of the billionaires, to Bloomberg and to Trump. But I had to remind them that Donald Trump's not that rich.
And Elon Musk, it seems to me, when he uses the adjective underwhelming, it's kind of like taking in 1868 your white glove off and going, poop, underwhelming. The Big Finish, number 6, story 6. Happy 66th birthday to John Travolta. Go.
This is like our Cher Joe Biden moment from last night.
Just to look around at each other awkwardly.
Yeah.
I mean, this is 2 about cars in a row, too. I mean, I know that John Travolta isn't about cars, but obviously the only thing that matters is when he flies away in a car at the end of Grease.
Would it be inappropriate if I outed him right now on this LGBT? It would be inappropriate.
Okay, you don't have to do it.
The Big Finish, topic story number 7. On this day in 1885, Mark Twain published The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Tom, what do you think?
I love Huckleberry Finn. I know
Of course
that,
you do.
I do. I mean, I think it's really important for children, especially in their early childhood development years, to read that kind of literature because it shows where we've come from our past and where we're going, hopefully, in our future. But I actually was understudy for Huckleberry Finn at the University of Akron.
I knew we were going to get
at
to
the
it.
University of Akron for a musical called Big River the Musical, which is a musical version of Huckleberry Finn.
You worked at the Big River in a oh, you beat Napoleon to a Broadway reference. Oh,
Yeah,
lovely.
there's a great song about Akron, and I'll tell you about it later, though. But actually, what I thought was really interesting about this story, it required that I look more into Huckleberry Finn. I haven't read it since I was younger. Apparently, it is used in gender studies and queer studies frequently because of the relationship that he had with Jim. There's a lot of people that say that they had homoerotic tendencies, just like Mark Twain himself, and that was reflected in the books.
That's a stretch. Just a child and an adult. That's weird.
Yeah, very strange, and thank you. Thank you, Mark Twain.
Next.
And next.
The critics say.
Oh, God.
We finish up the big finish, story number 8, and this is a big one. It's probably the most important story that we tell today on Tuesday.
Maybe all week.
Finally, after exhaustive research, we finally know how millipedes have sex. And we have found out thanks to glowing genitals.
Exhaustive resources. What were you specifically doing? Research. What were you doing to find this out specifically? If it was exhaustive.
I'm reading the study.
Okay.
I'm reading the study is what I'm doing.
This is a funny one. I'll let Aaron jump in because we were talking about all sorts of different things. How they have a bluish ejaculate among many other odd points when they're procreating.
It's just weird. I'm like picturing in my brain two millipedes and the bluish ejaculate of which you're referring to. And I never thought ever in my life I could say that if you ever wanted to see an extremely off-Broadway production of the Blue Man Group, you could just go in your own backyard.
Oh my God, it's such a crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is the big finish, and that is today's news for the LGBT community on the world's first daily gay evening news show. I'm a little tongue-tied because I'm thinking about those 2 millipedes at the moment. Remember, if it's important to the LGBT community, it's important to Q News Tonight. We are, as we say, out of the closet and into the headlines. And this is Q News Tonight. Thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 7.